This tutorial is designed to show you how to convert survey instrument data, so it will be applicable to land surveyors and engineers who've collected their own survey data. And within the test data folder there's a folder called example instrument data, within which there are examples of Leica and TopCon data. LSS will convert a variety of different formats, including SDR, Trimble, Leica, either GSI or DBX, TopCon, GTS6 and GTS7 data, and a variety of other formats which you may encounter. So I'm going to create a new survey and I'm going to call it the same name as one of these raw data files. I go to File New and I'm simply dragging that file over into that field there. I now want to choose Input, Download and Convert, and at this precise moment I only have a Leica DBX and a Trimble SC data logger configured. What I want to do now is create a new one, select TopCon, and we're given the option of defaulting to either physically downloading a file using some communications software, which in this case will be ActiveSync, or mobile media on later versions of Microsoft Windows, or if it's an old instrument and you need to configure and send the data down through an old communications port, then we can set it up in that way, or we can make the default no data transfer by default, which means that if the data is always already copied onto a memory stick or onto our hard drive, then we don't need to go through the process of copying it again from the instrument. We can select the data format, that's GTS7 or GTS6, and that's now configured and it's at the top of the list, which means that it will default to that whenever we go to the Input, Download, Convert. As you can see, the defaults are correctly set up, and I'm going to drag the raw data file, which if we just view we can see it's raw data, and we can just about pick out station names, feature codes, horizontal angle, vertical angles, slope distances, etc. I'm going to convert this data into the currently open survey, which means I don't need to hit next, but if I do so it will at least show me the data file that it is going to create. If the codes that you've collected on the logger or the survey instrument are compatible with your LSS prototype, then you won't need a conversion file, but if you're forced to use different codes in the field than you are using in LSS, then you can build up a conversion file that will do that conversion of codes for you. If and only if you're having difficulty converting data from various instruments, then you might want to tick the box to report detailed information, and also to pause at each error or warning that's issued. Normally these will be unticked, and if you do have problems you can always scroll back up through the report to see what the issues might have been. If you have them, we always recommend that you process radial, that is angle and distance data, because it contains a lot more quality assurance than simply processing coordinates. And some loggers will record not only the radials but also for every record the coordinates, and this will allow the software to chop and change between that which is available. Also, if the logger or instrument is providing LSS with stations, then do you want to include those as well? Normally you would say yes. It's read the top of the file and it has come across a feature code that is not in the LSS prototype. We have several options at this stage. We can either accept that maybe we made a mistake and we should have used a different code, i.e. not KS but K. We can leave it as KS and then teach it what that code means later on, or we can say in actual fact it should have been a point feature and we can go and define a point feature for it. Well, I'm going to change this one to simply a curb. It then finds another feature code which it doesn't understand, at which point I say don't ask me again, just process it, and I'll teach you what the code means later on. And those feature code conversion requests can be saved away as a conversion file. It's reported that we've found 787 points or radial observations, and there are 7 instrument setups. What we've done at this stage is converted the TopCon raw data into an LSS load file, which we can now save and load. There are a number of tick boxes on this screen which you need to be aware of. If there are any errors in processing that survey data, then we can get the report to pause on those errors. If we don't pause on the errors, then we can go back up and review them manually if we so desire. We can also get it to pause on any control tolerance warnings. And control tolerance warnings are check sightings to stations which exceed this warning value but are lower than this value. For this exercise, I'm just going to raise the error value high enough up to allow this load file to come in without any errors. We can get it to pause on all warnings, and depending on the type of instrument or logger that you're using, we can get it to clear all link features every time the instrument setup is changed. We can get it to clear a link feature every time that code is changed, which means that as long as you complete a link feature, such as a curb, the next time you use curb having surveyed something else with a different feature code, then it will start a new curb. You can of course use string numbers. We can prevent LSS from generating crossing links, and those will be links which probably are a mistake, but where you've got a line crossing another line, you can get it to automatically chop the longer of those 2 lines. And there's further information there to do with any annotation for any points. Do we want to use the text style for the feature that the text is surveyed immediately afterwards? We'll just go through this process now and load the data. It's asking us now for the set on station coordinates, because in this data file we haven't been given the station coordinates. And this true bearing has defaulted to the value that we've got from the first line of the survey. So setup on station A, no backside station, no backside angle, but an instrument height. It now looks forward 1 record to find the backside angle, and also the station name. -ST is a reserve code that means this is a station sighting, not a feature code B. Set on A, back sighting B. We'll get the same warning about that unknown feature code. The survey is completed and it's been displayed in the background, and as soon as we hit continue, there you have the survey. These are the crossing links that you have the option of automatically preventing from taking place. This is a contour, and these blue lines are contours as well. Okay, well that's perfectly processed survey data. What I'm now going to show you is what happens when it all goes wrong. It's all well and good showing you a demonstration data set that works perfectly, but we can almost guarantee that at some stage you're going to have some problems processing a survey instrument data file. Now this section won't go through the differences between the various different instrument data formats. They are myriad, and of course you will need to install supplementary software if you are processing Leica DBX data. That's anything from the Leica 1200 through Viva, Nova, and onto the Captivate controllers, and also the Trimble survey instruments and controllers. Old formats such as GSI from Leica or the GDM, old geodometer format from Trimble, don't require extra software, but There's a lot of help documentation available on our website and also on the LSS installation flash drive, which will help you towards installing all of the necessary additional software for those survey instruments. All I'm going to do here is just look at a couple of errors with a load file. Let's try and load that load file that we've already covered earlier on in this tutorial. Same problems as before. Okay, right, we've come up with an error at this point. It says end of setup reached before resection possible. What does that mean? Well, before every line that's reported there is a line number. Line 253 is a setup record, and the instrument setup is CZ. Well, that doesn't mean anything to me at this point because I was using single character station names, which means that that's in error somewhere. It's probably C or Z, but it's certainly not C and Z together. What LSS does, he says, okay, I don't understand what CZ is. I haven't cited it before occupying it. Therefore, I'm going to look forward 2 records to see if this is intended to be a resection. It's looked forward 1 record and found a known station, station B. That's -ST and the station name is B. But it's looked forward another record and hasn't found another check sighting to another different station. Therefore it says end of setup reached before resection possible. Let's go back at this point. Now if you have to edit the file, please don't go right the way back to the beginning and download and convert the original raw survey data from the survey instrument. There is never a requirement to do that if the data has passed the first stage of converting it to a load file. Because if you start editing raw data from survey instruments, you can get into a bit of a pickle because some of the data formats are very sensitive to additional spaces and dots in the wrong place and all that sort of stuff. So only ever edit the load file. We come back to the input load, and if we select edit, I've just opened it up in a standard Notepad text editor which doesn't happen to show line numbers. If you're using a more sophisticated text editor, then you might have a setting from the menus or an indicator of the line down here, but in actual fact if we just select Ctrl G, you can go and type in a line number. That goes straight down to that line. Okay, I can see the problem, of course, as I've indicated before. That shouldn't be CZ, that should be C. Then it will be taking a foresight to B. That's fine, that looks okay to me from there. Let's try it again. Okay, right, the next problem, actually on the next line in that file. It's telling me that there is an excessive difference between the stored coordinates for station B and the newly observed coordinates when cited from station C. It has exceeded a tolerance that is set in the input load screen. So if we go back and hit the advanced button, we can go and change that error value so that it exceeds any of our control tolerance warnings we're likely to find. And there you see we only have warnings and not errors. Well, that's the basic structure behind downloading and converting and then finding problems with your survey data and fixing them. There is a lot more to it. If you have any questions about your own specific survey data, then please don't hesitate to contact our support line either by phone or by email.